Welcome to the Partnernomics Show, where industry thought leaders discuss the hottest topics in partnerships, ecosystems, and innovation. The Partnernomics Show is brought to you by IOLite Solutions, a product incubator specific to Salesforce. Now here's the host of the Partnernomics Show, Mark Brigman.
Welcome back to another episode of the Partnernomics Show. My name is Mark Brigman, your host. And man, I'm pulling somebody else in here to help me out a little bit. Mr. Bob Jones. Bob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous, Mark. Thanks for having me.
So Bob is one of our Partnernomics implementers. So we've pulled Bob into the Partnernomics family. And so Bob is now going to be leading our different boot camps. And so Bob, I really appreciate you jumping on board, working with us, and now getting ready to start working with our learners. But why were you interested in working with Partnernomics? What has your experience been? I know we'll get to kind of your background, but decades of leading really large partnerships. But why Partnernomics?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we could spend 12 hours talking about my background, but I came to the Partnernomics, as you know, is through my co-founder and I starting collabtogrow and really wanting to provide professional services based around partners and alliances, and we started looking around for methodologies. We couldn't find any. We started to build one, and then we met you at the Catalyst convention, did some serious due diligence on your frameworks and methodologies, and by far it's the best stuff out there. And we really wanted to embrace it in our consulting, and we're really excited about actually coaching and teaching folks in the Partnernomics methodology.
Well, Bob, you and Ken, it's been fun getting to know you guys and to work with you, collaborating with you, and just having the hours and hours of conversations that we've had, and then you guys digging through, becoming SPLP certified, going through all of our content, but even going deeper in order to become an implementer. It's been awesome to get to know you guys and just sharing that same philosophy of just what it takes to be able to lead these partnerships. And so I am in particular going to be working with Bob and Ken to go through, we're going to do a deep dive over the next year plus in some of our Partnernomics shows, just really doing a deep dive into the Partnernomics methodology. And so it's going to be fun really digging into that starting today. So Bob, if you are ready, man, we try to keep these shows nice and kind of bite-sized to grab them. So man, let's jump in. Are you ready to take on the first question?
Let's do it.
All right, I want to
get is this like Jeopardy? Can I pick a number for 500, please?
Absolutely. Okay, so question one for 500. Man, executive expectations, right? So we hear about executive expectations, but man, what does that really mean? So I want to dissect with you and just kind of ask, in this episode, we're going to focus on starting a partnering program from the ground up, right? I understand that most partnering professionals or different folks that are out there, they've had their program in flight probably for years at least. But we're going to kind of start from the ground up and go through the Partnernomics methodology and kind of talk about like even pre-methodology. I mean, what is the very first thing that has to happen? And that's, centered around executive expectation. So what are some of those key pieces and components that goes into executive expectations? And then how do partnering professionals make sure that they have that?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing when you think about executive expectations for a new program is I think a lot of partnering professionals don't really know that C-level folks don't really understand partnerships. I mean, I think that's the basic first premise you have to have. I mean, what they know about partnerships is, they met a fellow C-level person at a convention and somebody said, hey, we should partner. And so their level of understanding of what a true partnership is very shallow. So they think, first of all, they think very sales oriented, transaction oriented. So they think a partnership is a transaction. And when we start to, think about solutions partnerships, they're anything but, they're long-term kind of strategic relationships. And so they really are kind of thinking transactional versus strategic. And so what's really important about starting to set those expectations is really around that. Is this isn't something that, we're going to go get a partner and sell a deal next quarter.
So Bob, we've both been an employee to several large organizations, or I've been doing this partnering thing. Part of our methodology, we talk about the importance of building very explicit plans. And so I know in a future topic, we'll kind of dig into what some of those plans are and what's included in them. But I think it's worth calling out just from the kind of beginning, a plan isn't a plan unless it's written down and you can actually kind of share it and look at it and grapple with it. To your point, we've all had this happen. I know I've had it happen where the VP comes in on Monday morning. Hey, went to a conference last week, met another executive from an organization. There has to be some synergies there. Let's knock out this deal. And it's kind of, I call it the tail wagging the dog, but really it has to start with having the clear strategy from the beginning, what partnering is, how we're going to leverage partnerships, what that means, what it will entail, and making it formalized like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, and again, part of it is where partnerships are and kind of the maturity of the function. I mean, if you're a sales exec or a marketing exec or an IT exec, you're not going to the C-suite looking to spend money, time, resources without a plan. And so, planning in the partnership space really has to follow kind of the traditional plans. What's the vision, mission, strategy, and then you can talk to C-level execs in their language. I mean, right now we can't, we don't want to talk to them in the partner language. We want to talk to them in the language of business. And so I think that's really the most important thing. If you really want to manage expectations, you have to have a plan. And so I think that's kind of, otherwise, you're going to run into, execs saying, what's the next transaction that's coming out of my partnerships? At the end of the day, and I think I'll steal this line because I like it a lot, is, partnerships is not a department, it's a strategy, right? So if you're thinking of it as in a strategic way, they have to build plans. And then you can at least talk to execs in a language they understand.
I think another piece, at least that I see in coaching different teams across the world, is a misexpectation on time and resources, but specifically time. I think to the point that you were making, the C-suite, these executives that want to leverage the power of partnership and bring that in, for the majority of them, their background and their expertise, their career has been centered around sales, direct sales, working internally.
Right.
And whenever we decide to leverage the power, the capabilities, the connections, the assets, the networks of our partners, by definition, it's a different organization, different strategies, different cultures, different budgets, different interests. So it becomes exponentially more difficult and more challenging. And where executives are expecting to get, let's say, in the case of channel referral, these more sales-oriented partnerships, the expectations is to hit revenue in 3 months, 6 months, whatever that might be. More often than not, it's a year or more before there's a positive ROI.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And, we talk a little bit about my background. I come from a very large scale program management background. So I've run actually programs as large as $1 billion. And so for me, when I look at the lens of partnerships, especially solution partnerships, they feel more like a program than they feel like, a function. And so you really have to, again, it's all about setting expectations at C-level. Is, you know, if you're going to get into a strategic relationship with a partner and actually build a solution or some new innovation, you know, you're 12 to 24 months away before you even go to market, never mind make money. So
Yeah.
you know, again, I think that whole timeline is why it's so important to do the pre-planning. You know,
Yeah.
that if you can't have that conversation with C-level execs, you know, the first quarter you're gonna it's not gonna be pretty.
Absolutely. All right. So we have hit our timeline on that question. Let's jump to question number 2. And that is clear expectations, right? Clear goals, clear expectations. And something I share is like, if you don't have a goal identified, no expectation set, how can you have accountability? How can you manage anything?
Yeah.
Let's hit the topic a little bit about setting goals and setting expectations and the importance of those.
Yeah, and I think to me it's kind of two elements that we hit a little bit on it. The first element is time, right? And especially solution partnering, you know, the goals in year one are going to look a lot different than the goals in year three, and they should. So anybody who's trying to set realistic goals has to start with that time element. You know, you know, your first year goals, your second year goals, your third year goals. And then the second part that I think is really important is how you set goals. And one of the things I really liked about the Partnernomics framework is the whole concept of the perpetual 90-day plan. And again, it really resonates for me as a kind of a program management person is, you know, you really just need to keep setting goals for every 90 days. And then when you get to that 90 days, hopefully you've made your goals and you reset whatever comes to play. So I think that the 90-day perpetual planning model is just outstanding. And I think, you know, professionals should really embrace it. And then, you know, a couple other things. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, to kind of to dig on that one a little bit deeper, promise I won't jump my soapbox too hard, but that is, you know, at the executive level, you know, we need to build these annual plans so we identify this direction and everybody can resource, you know, allocate their resources based upon that direction. And annual goals are super important. But in my humble opinion, whenever it comes to like operationalizing and managing on the day-to-day basis, I am an absolute firm believer in these 90-day sprints that we set up, as you mentioned. And so, you know, we really encourage people from an operations perspective to set up these 90-day sprints, and then they're just perpetual, and you run them that way. And so, you know, you're able to manage them in more of these bite-sized chunks. There's so many moving parts, especially in partnerships. Obviously, it's external working with these organizations. There's markets changing and shifting, new capabilities to come in. We need to be able to take this more agile approach so we can take advantage of new opportunities, but also adjust to new challenges that's going to come up in front of us. And these happen on a monthly basis to give us, make it just a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I said, it is, and by the way, it is a program management best practices to do things in these 90-day windows, because a year is just too long. So then the other thing I think is focus around, you know, realistic goals. You know, don't set 97 of them. You know, 3 is probably the right number at any given time. And you know, goal setting, obviously you need to understand, you know, a start, a finish, what's it look like when you're done. So just kind of best practices around goal setting. But again, I think the more important thing is, you know, the 90-day window, keep it in there, and keep it to 3 goals.
It seems like a lot of, especially executives, they want to make goals become their Christmas wish list. And so, what things do we want done this year? What things do we want done this quarter? And we get this long laundry list. We've heard, well, you stole somebody's quote, so I'm going to steal somebody's as well. If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority.
Yeah.
Right. But if we hand over this laundry list of 10 goals to accomplish, this quarter or this year, that defeats the purpose of having focused energy. And I think to your point, if we identify 3 and we really put a lot of our power and energy into that, we'll have a chance to move the needle. So we hit that one. Let's go to question number 3. And that's
is this one for 1,000? Come on.
This one is for 1,000.
I want to win.
Actually, this is your daily double, man. This is your daily double.
Man.
This is your chance to double it.
Thanks.
Executive sponsorship. It's probably pretty self-explanatory, but why is it important to get executive sponsorship? And then what does that mean? How wide does that go?
This one is just, this is like a softball, Mark. You're really going to give me this one?
And this is to double your points.
I know.
This is the daily double.
First of all, I'm gonna make a statement that probably we should end the conversation anyways. But if you don't have executive commitment, and when I talk about executives, it's CEO, C-suite, board, depending on the size of your company, investors, depending on where you are in a company. If you don't have their buy-in to your partner program and understanding and buy-in, the chances of you failing are about 99%. So that's probably the most important reason why you need executive buy-in. And by the way, if you don't believe me, just look at LinkedIn every day these last few months, and all of those folks, I can guarantee you, the partner folks that are all getting let go, they didn't have buy-in from their executive team, because if the executive teams aren't cutting salespeople. So if they really thought partnerships were going to generate sales, if they really understood and really bought into the program, you wouldn't see all the partnership folks getting laid off. So step 1 is, if you don't have that, go home.
I love how you specifically call out, it's not just the CEO, but it's going across the C-suite. And, we talk about partnering being a culture. So many times whenever organizations start, they start off, kind of building the sales team, and you're doing this direct approach, which by definition is being independent, us in the foxhole, us against the world. We can do this. And that builds this strong but independent culture. And then whenever whenever a lot of organizations get years down the road, now they decide they want to leverage the power of partnership. Now we want to be interdependent, which means we're dependent on these other organizations. And so now we're relying on these other companies, their assets, their resources, their customers, in order for us to be successful. And it's a culture shift. And if you don't have, not only, like you said, not only the CEO, but the entire C-suite, marketing, revenue officers, finance officers, you have to have them buying into this culture shift, this strategy shift to embrace partnering.
Yeah, well, let me just give an example from my background, not specific to alliances, but just in general. I used to report to the CFO at Fleet Bank when I was the CIO there. And during times of economic stress, you know who the most important C-level exec is in the place?
Amen.
It's the CFO.
Amen.
So you might get your CRO and your marketing exec all jazzed about partners. In a recession, you better convince your CFO that it's worth the money. So
yeah, I think to your point, and what we're kind of experiencing right now, partnering by definition is this longer term play, which is kind of the antithesis of sales, which is kind of this shorter term play, right? We're always chasing this quota, and it's, the partnering being a longer term play, whether you're talking, revenue focused partnerships or solutions, these product building relationships, those are a longer term play. And if you don't have this deep commitment and the cheerleaders on your side with the discipline to stay with that long-term vision, we're seeing what we see now on LinkedIn, right?
Here we are.
And you see a lot of people getting cut, and it's not pretty.
not to put a shameless plug in, but if they had all gone through the Partnernomics approach and had their plans in place, we'd probably see less. In fact, I'd be willing to bet your Partnernomics clients are not the ones we're seeing on LinkedIn. But
we see, I mean, they're crushing it. They're crushing it. We'll
exactly.
show proof of that. We'll show proof of that soon. All right, I'm ready to hit you. Timer's up. I'm ready to hit you with another
Okay.
one. This is the fourth and final question, and this is predominantly for smaller organizations, but the question is, can partnering be a part-time job? Like whenever we look at partnering organizations or these companies that are doing partnering well, is it possible to have it as a part-time job, or do they need to have some committed resources?
Well, my experience, and we obviously deal with a lot of clients who are starting programs. Couple of things happen. One is they take someone that's really good and they give them a nighttime job to kind of play around in partnerships. So they treat it like a science project. Or even worse, and we've seen this quite a bit, they take somebody who's not been particularly successful in sales or marketing, and rather than jettison that person, they say, hey, you go be the partner person. So, I don't think, if you're going to get into partnering, you have to make a commitment. It can't be a science project. To me, even in the smallest company, if you're not willing to make a full FTE commitment, you probably shouldn't even start your partner program. So my opinion, it should be a full FTE, and as well, kind of giving that FTE some budget to do stuff.
Yeah, if it's worth doing right.
Yeah.
And wait until you're ready. I couldn't agree with you. Couldn't agree with you more, Bob. I mean, wait until you're ready. You have all the commitment. You've done those pieces up front, but wait till you're ready to bring somebody on that can dedicate their time for that. Because just like you pointed out, I mean, what we commonly see is, somebody comes over from sales or somebody comes over from marketing because they're used to working with outside organizations. So, I mean, surely they'll be good with partnering, right? I mean, that's working with outside organizations, but it is a part-time job for them. And it's not even an equal part-time job. It's one of those things, we'll do it after our day job is done. And we know that in sales and in marketing, right, there's always that looming monthly quota or those weekly numbers that have to be hit. And so, partnering is one of those things that requires momentum. It requires this constant nurturing. And if we don't have at least one FTE in there, it's not going to work.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think the other part is, not only should it be a full FTE, but it either should be one of your A-team superstars, who's, because as we know, partnership, kind of the skills and competencies for really effective partnership leaders is way broader than a typical salesperson or a marketing person. So one, if you're going to take someone from your team, make it your A player that hopefully can, maneuver across all those competencies. And if it's not, then go out and hire an experienced A player that already has partnerships.
Yeah, that's an awesome topic, and we'll definitely be hitting that one. But yeah, what is the difference between an A player on the sales team and kind of those personality attributes of A players and partnering teams? They're actually very, very different. That's a fun topic that we'll end up digging into.
Much different. In fact, I would, again, kind of because I come kind of from the program management world, a good program manager would likely be better partnership person than a bad salesperson.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's just so broad, and just the coordination of having a lot of different components going. And it's not the typical kind of hunter to go out and kind of do this one-to-one sort of a relationship. It's coordinating. I use the analogy of an air traffic controller. They're never flying the planes, but they're coordinating a lot of moving parts to keep those in place. So it's definitely vastly different, but a fun topic that we'll end up digging into.
Yeah, I think we could we could go 12 questions for 1,000 on that one for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Bob, that wraps it up for this show, man. It's short, sweet, quick, but hopefully we pass some insights to folks for them to check out. But look forward to having many more of these sessions with you while we dig into the entire Partnernomics methodology.
Well, I appreciate being on. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I like you, I'm passionate about this. I think there's such an upside to the partnerships world. We just need to get the enthusiastic people upskilled to be able to actually do the work that needs to be done. So
learn the science of partnering, right?
Exactly.
A lot more science than it is art. Let's get the science out there.
Absolutely. 100%.
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Partnernomics Show. Don't forget to subscribe to get the newest episodes at thepartnernomicsshow.com. Special thanks to our sponsors, Iolite. To learn more about Iolite, visit iolitepro.com. And Partnernomics, the science of partnering. To learn more about the suite of Partnernomics courses, coaching programs, and consulting services, visit partnernomics.com. See you on the next episode.